a new world order can emerge.
I will build a great, great wall.
Verden er i forandring, og den bliver aldrig den samme igen.
Vive la République! Vive la France!
Mit navn er Flemming Rose. Jeg mener, at den vestlige verden er i krise.
Den europæiske flygtningekrise er for alvor nået til Danmark.
The European project is actually beginning to die.
I denne programrække taler jeg med indflydelsesrige meningsdannere i et forsøg på at blive klogere på en ny verdensorden. Den liberale verdensorden er truet, men ikke af de kræfter, vi normalt tænker på. Glem alt om radikal islam, Kina, Rusland, økonomisk krise, Trump eller populistiske bevægelser. I det 21. århundrede vil den største trussel mod den liberale verdensorden komme fra de nye teknologier i Silicon Valley og omegn.
We are on the verge of creating the first inorganic life forms.
Det betyder, at det bliver muligt at skabe et nyt supermenneske. Og for første gang i historien vil millioner og atter millioner af mennesker blive økonomisk værdiløse. Vi befinder os med andre ord på tærsklen til en ny verdensorden, hvor mennesket vil stræbe efter udødelighed og guddommelige evner til at skabe og tilintetgøre. Men hvad betyder den teknologiske revolution for vores samfund, for verdensordenen og for krig og fred? Det spørger jeg den israelske historiker Yuval Harari om. Harari er forfatter til 2 internationale bestsellere om menneskets historie og om den nære fremtid. USA's tidligere præsident Barack Obama, stifteren af Microsoft Bill Gates og manden bag Facebook Mark Zuckerberg har alle peget på Hararis bøger som nøglen til forståelse af den verden, der lige om lidt bliver til virkelighed. Yuval Harari, welcome to the program. We're going to talk about Homo sapiens, how people like you and me rose to the top of the food chain and conquered the world, and about what challenges face us in the 21st century and what it means for world order and for the way we organize our societies and our lives. But first, who is your favorite historical character? Your historian.
Who is my favorite historical character? Well, history is very long, so if I limit myself just to the last 100 years, I would say it's Mikhail Gorbachev.
Okay, why?
I think that most of us, probably all our lives, to him, in the sense that he made it possible for the Cold War to end in a peaceful way.
You make the point that a cognitive revolution paved the way for Homo sapiens to move to the top of the food chain. When did that cognitive revolution take place?
We don't know for sure. Sometime around 60, 70, 80,000 years ago. But this is the moment when one particular human species, Homo sapiens, which up until that point was just another kind of animal with a limited impact on the world, suddenly becomes the most important animal that ever existed, breaking out of East Africa, colonizing the entire planet, and becoming the most powerful force. And within just 60 or 70,000 years, which is nothing in evolutionary terms, it reaches a point today when we are really becoming gods. We are gaining the ability to change the most fundamental laws of life. If you think about it, for 4 billion years, life is managed by the laws of natural selection and by the laws of organic biochemistry. Nothing changes for 4 billion years. And then you have Homo sapiens about to replace natural selection with intelligent design as the principle of evolution, of the evolution of life, and about to replace organic biochemistry with a completely different system as the supporting substructure of life. For 4 billion years, all of life was organisms. Doesn't matter if you have dinosaurs or you have a dinosaur or an amoeba, you're made of organic compounds. You're subject to the life, to the principles of organic biochemistry. And now in the 21st century, we are on the verge of creating the first inorganic life forms.
I will come back to that, but what caused the cognitive revolution? What were the driving forces behind this really amazing evolutionary development?
What you find amazing about Homo sapiens over the last 60, 70,000 years, what enables us to become the most powerful animal on the planet, is that we begin to cooperate in very large numbers and in very flexible ways.
Like, for instance?
In trade, politics, religion, and so forth.
That's the nation state, church,
churches,
company,
nation
bureaucracy.
states, trade networks. This is our big advantage, the ability to cooperate flexibly in large numbers. And what enables us to do it is our imagination and our ability to tell stories, fictional stories. Fictional stories, it sounds maybe strange, but fictional stories are probably the key to the human conquest of the world. It's our most important ability, until today at least. Because if you examine any large-scale human cooperation, a church, a nation, an army, a corporation, anything, you will find that it is based on fictional stories about things that exist only in our own imagination.
Can you be a little bit more specific? What do you mean by that they only exist in our imagination?
Yes, so the most obvious example is religion. And you have stories about God and heaven and hell. And these are things that, to the best of our scientific understanding, exist only in our imagination. There are no gods in the universe, as far as our scientific understanding goes. The only place gods exist is in the stories we tell one another and in our collective imagination. But this is true, not just of religions. It's true of political systems. Nations are just a story.
But why is it then that most of us tend to believe that these stories, in fact, in many instances, are more real than real facts? That we believe in these stories as if they in fact exist in physical reality?
Because we've been hearing these stories again and again and again. If you hear a story once, then it's just a story. But if you hear it every day of your life, again and again, it becomes just impossible, almost impossible, to think that, oh, this is just a story people invented. The most important stories in the world have extremely flimsy foundations. If you think about the Christian story, about the life of Jesus, if you think about the Bible, it has extremely flimsy foundations. But then the roof, on top of the roof, we have built gigantic structures, economic, political, social, cultural. So the weight of the structure that is built on top of this story is so heavy that it keeps the story in place. People say, wait, if this is just a fictional story, it means that all my life were wasted. It means that our entire nation is going in the wrong direction. It means that the entire economic system makes no sense. And this is too much. People see what's coming. If this is not true, the consequences, the implications are so mind-boggling that no way, it must be true.
I tusindvis af år har menneskeheden kæmpet med 3 altoverskyggende trusler. Hungersnød, epidemier og krig. Gennem historien har vi været gode til at opfinde nye redskaber, nye institutioner og nye sociale systemer, der har betydet store fremskridt. Men indtil for få årtier siden er vi blevet ved med at dø i millionvis af sult, smitsomme sygdomme og vold. Det er imidlertid nu lykkedes os at tøjle hungersnød, epidemier og store krige. Vi er bedre til at producere og distribuere fødevarer. Lægevidenskaben har gjort det muligt at udrydde epidemier, og færre mennesker bliver dræbt i krig. Videnskaben har skridt for skridt flyttet grænserne for vores muligheder, Og vi er nu nået til et punkt, hvor selv vores organer kan udskiftes. Alt sammen drevet af menneskets ukuelige ambition om at besejre døden. Vi står nu over for en ny revolution i menneskehedens historie. Ligesom Homo sapiens udkonkurrerede andre pattedyr og mennesker som neandertaleren, vil fremtidens opgraderede supermenneske kunne leve længere, føle sig lykkeligere og have bedre evner, end vi har. De nye teknologier kan måske lægge fundamentet til en ny menneskeart. Would you like to live forever?
Forever is a big word. When people talk about extending human life, even indefinitely, what they usually have in mind is a slightly different question. Would you like to live 10 more years in good health? I would definitely say yes. Most people will say yes. And then if they come after 10 years again and say, okay, do you want another 10 years in good health? And another 10 years? In almost any case, people will say yes. So in this sense, people want to live, not just me, I guess most people would like to live indefinitely.
But you make the point that human beings in the 21st century, that our project would be to achieve immortality, happiness, and
divinity,
divine abilities to create and destroy. Why do you believe that is going to be at the top of the agenda of human beings or Homo sapiens in the 21st century?
People always wanted to increase their satisfaction, their happiness, and people always wanted more power. Maybe not all people, but at least when you look at humanity as a whole, you can say that yes, humanity as a whole has been chasing after more and more power for thousands of years. The only difference in the 21st century is that now these projects, which seems to be impossible in previous ages, now we are about to get technology to extend life indefinitely.
Could you explain a little bit more? Because I think this sounds like science fiction to a lot of people out there.
Well, I mean, if you look at God, at least the biblical God, his number one quality is he's the creator God. He can create life. He can design and then manufacture or produce animals and plants and humans. Now we are getting these abilities, technologies, to design and redesign and reshape and manufacture living beings in three main ways. The first method is with biological engineering. You take the biological body as it is, and you start manipulating parts of it, most notably the DNA, the blueprint. And just as Homo sapiens evolved from a previous species of apes by mutations in DNA, we can now do this on purpose, or maybe not in 2017. Maybe it will take 50 years, 100 years, but we are getting there. Now, this is the most conservative of the three ways of how to design and manufacture life. The more radical way is to engineer cyborgs. Cyborg engineering is different from biological engineering because it is not limited to organic parts. It starts combining organic with inorganic parts. You take, say, the human body and the human brain, and you replace an organic hand with a bionic hand. Now, this sounds like science fiction, but it's not. It's already being done today. The third and most radical way to re-engineer life is to abandon the organic brain and have a 100% bionic entity. Replace the brain with a computer of some kind and create a completely inorganic life forms.
What are the implications of that development? Because what you have talked about so far sound to me quite good. But you also seem to be concerned by this development. So what are the implications of this third very radical method of redesigning life?
We are still organic animals. We share most of our bodily functions, even many of our emotions and social habits we share with other animals. And AI, and artificial intelligence, which is completely inorganic, is not limited at all by the traditions of 4 billion years of evolution. It opens up some amazing possibilities, but it also means that humankind and everything we cherish may completely disappear, and a totally alien kind of civilization or process will replace us. On the most radical, it could mean the elimination of all consciousness. Because AI, artificial intelligence, does not imply artificial consciousness. There is a huge confusion, also because of science fiction, between intelligence and consciousness. But they are very different things. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems. Consciousness is the ability to feel things, to have subjective experiences like pain and pleasure and love and hate. Now, in Homo sapiens and other animals, other mammals, consciousness and intelligence go together. We solve problems by having feelings. But computers don't work like this, at least not until today. And there is no reason to believe that as they become more and more intelligent, they will necessarily also develop consciousness.
Den nye teknologi, som Harari taler om, er i mange tilfælde allerede en realitet. I et nyligt eksperiment blev en computeralgoritme sat til at undersøge en gruppe mennesker for lungekræft. Den stillede en korrekt diagnose i 90% af tilfældene, mens rigtige læger af kød og blod måtte nøjes med en succesrate på 50%. Så spørgsmålet er nu, hvordan vi skal tilpasse fremtidens arbejdsmarked, når automatisering udkonkurrerer mennesker. Ikke blot hvad angår fysiske evner, men også intelligens. Det vil sige vores evne til at løse kognitive opgaver. Hvad vil der ske med parforhold, familier og pensionsselskaber, når regenerativ medicin forvandler vores 80-års alder til den nye 50-års alder? Hvad sker der med et samfund, hvor bioteknologi gør det muligt for dem med den største pengepunkt at udvikle designerbørn og dermed baner vej for gigantiske nye kløfter mellem rig og fattig? But what are the implications of this technological disruption for world order?
You're looking at things like AI replacing hundreds of millions of people in the job market and the creation of a global useless class of people who have no jobs because robots and AI do everything better. There will be new jobs, of course, for some people, but not necessarily for everybody. And the difficulties of retraining, like people say, okay, so you won't have taxi drivers and you won't have textile workers, but you have many more software programmers. But how do you retrain millions of Bangladeshis, 40-year-old textile workers from Bangladesh? Are they going to be software engineers? Unlikely. And you need to start doing things now because the time horizon, it could be very short. We are not talking about thousands of years. We are talking about decades. You know, it's a practical question, like kids who start school today. What should they learn so that they will have a job in 30 years? Nobody has any idea. We just don't know.
It seems to me that what you're saying is, in fact, forget about radical Islam, forget about populism, forget about Trump, forget about China's current shape. You have to look to Silicon Valley as a metaphor maybe in order to identify the potential biggest threat to the world order of today. Is that true? Is that the way you look at it?
Not Silicon Valley alone, but yes, ideas, the inventions, the technologies that is coming from them. In short, it's the combination of biotech and infotech. We are hacking the human organism at the same time that we develop these immense computing capabilities. When you put the two together, what you get is the ability to hack and control and manipulate people on a scale which was unimaginable, even for George Orwell or for Joseph Stalin. Now, I don't think that the people in Silicon Valley are evil. Actually, just the opposite. I think many of them are seeing the signs of dangers today sooner than maybe anybody else in the world. And you do hear more and more warnings coming from people like Elon Musk or like Mark Zuckerberg in different ways. And whereas in Washington, everybody is concerned about stuff from the 20th century.
ISIS, North Korea.
ISIS, immigration, and things like that, which are serious problems, definitely. They need our attention, but we can win all the small battles against ISIS, against North Korea, and against the economic crisis, and lose the really big war.
Which is?
Which is the technological disruption, which AI and biotechnology and the combination of the two will bring. And if you think short term, and what we do in most political systems, they think short terms. They see the immediate benefits of such developments, and they discount the long-term dangers. I don't think that technology is deterministic. You can use the same technology to build completely different societies. In the 20th century, you could use the same industrial technology of trains and electricity and radio to build a Nazi dictatorship or to build a liberal democracy. It's the same technology. So it's not the technology in itself which is the problem. It's what we do with that. There is a lot of talk today about hacking computers, but actually the really important thing is that we are hacking humanity. We are learning to understand in a very deep sense this mechanism of Homo sapiens. We are not there yet, but we are close to the point when an external system, if it has enough biometric data on you, and if it has enough computing power, it can understand you better than you understand yourself. What you think, what you like, what you feel, and how to manipulate you, how to press your emotional buttons. Now, in democratic societies, with all the issues of privacy and individualism and so forth, we don't like the idea of the government or Google collecting all our DNA samples and all our medical records and all our life history in one big database and allowing an algorithm to go over that and find correlations. But in a place like China, this could be done. If they do that, they will hack genetics, the human genome, far faster than any country in the West that cares about privacy and so forth. And this is just one example.
But if you take the pattern you lay out of the history of mankind and the way Homo sapiens treated inferior species and other human beings, it seems that there is a risk that these new superhuman beings, maybe if they behave the same way as Homo sapiens behaved vis-a-vis other species, the future for people like you and me don't look very bright, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If the superhumans of the future, or the AI of the future, will behave like us, it's very bad news for us.
What will happen to us? Will we be extended?
Either phased out, exterminated forcefully. There are some scenarios like that. More likely just phased out.
What does that mean?
It means that humankind may split into a small elite which gets all kinds of upgrades, biological upgrades, and becomes superhuman and monopolizes most of the wealth and power. And then you have 50, 70, 90, 95% of humankind being left behind as a growing pile of the useless class, of people who can't do anything useful better than a computer or AI or robot, who have no economic power and therefore also no political power, and whose fate depends on the good wishes, on the kindness of the master race. And looking at human history, it's not a position you would like to be in, to be dependent on the kindness of the master race. This is the kind of things that, if you're worried about, there is nothing that Israel or Denmark or even the US can do about it unless it cooperates with other nations. And again, I'm not optimistic, but I think that this is the only realistic option. If we keep thinking in terms of each individual nation state taking care of its own interests, failure is probably guaranteed.
You painted this rather pessimistic picture. What do you see? I mean, if we would be able to organize this global cooperation with the use of this disruptive technology, what would the future look like in 2050, for instance?
The responsible answer is that nobody has any idea. If we don't destroy ourselves, then the possibilities are really endless. For the first time in history, we have no idea how the world would look like in a few decades. Not only how the political system would look like, we don't know how the job market would look like, we don't know what family structure would look like, we don't know what the human body would look like, because for the first time, we are gaining the technology to start re-engineering our bodies, our brains, our minds. So this is the most responsible answer I can give. And it's important to realize it, that for the first time in history, we don't know even the basics about how the world would look like in a few decades.
On this optimistic note, thanks a lot. It was wonderful talking to you.
It was an interesting interview.
Fantastic. Jeg har i snart 30 år beskæftiget mig med verden og dens problemer. Men Yuval Harari har åbnet døren til en ny virkelighed, som jeg indtil nu ikke har skænket mange tanker. Det er ikke fordi han underkender de velkendte trusler og udfordringer, såsom økonomiske kriser og krige. Men han afdækker et perspektiv på de nye teknologier, som kan få mere vidtgående konsekvenser for os alle sammen og verden, end vi har fantasi til at forestille os. Om solen er ved at gå ned over menneskeheden, er for tidligt at sige. Alt, hvad Harari siger, er, at mennesket med de nye teknologier vil frigøre sig fra det organiske livs principper om evolution og naturlig selektion. I stedet vil mennesket blive i stand til at designe et nyt supermenneske med evner og muligheder, som vi aldrig nogensinde har set før. Hvordan mennesket vil bruge de evner og muligheder, står hen i det uvisse. Men det er uomtvisteligt, at der åbner sig perspektiver, som vil få afgørende indflydelse på den verden, som vores børn og børnebørn kommer til at leve i.